Uplifting community. Yeah, people come on, yeah. Uplifting community. Yeah. People come on, yeah. Uplifting community.
With your hosts, John Brown, Terry O'Neill, and T.D. Trice.
Uplifting. Whoa, whoa. Bring it together, y'all. Yeah. Uplifting. Need some uplifting.
My stars, my mess is my message. I'm not a victim, I'm a victor. Happy Thanksgiving, love y'all.
March here at Love Action INT 2018.
We are Love Action INT. We are campaigning out here for the Black Child Legacy campaign, and we are just supporting our North Highlands community. So, support us here at Love Action INT, supporting the community for community development.
Welcome to Uplifting Communities Talk Show. This show is to provide information and real strategies for successful living. I'm Terry A. O'Neill.
I'm John L. Brown.
And I'm T.D. Trice. Welcome to today's program. Today we're going to talk with Kim Brown, Executive Director of Love Action Intentionally. Kim, tell us a little bit about your organization and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. So I'll start with me, a little bit about myself, a little bit of my journey, my story that kind of got me to where I am today. So I was born in Pittsburgh, California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pittsburgh girl. And I moved to Silicon Valley when I was about 6 years old. And then I grew up there and went to high school. My 9th grade year, I moved to Sacramento.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of a strange way I got here. My mother kidnapped me. Literally.
Okay.
And brought me to Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And that kind of started my journey to going in a different direction than I believe what God had planned for my life. So here I am, 8th grade going to ninth grade, and I got into all kinds of things. So I got into gangs at a young age. Mm-hmm. I got into drugs at a young age, selling, not using, and just started going and headed down the wrong direction. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was already a teen mother. I was already a single parent because her father was also in a gang and had died to gunshot wound to the head. And I had already experienced death right in front of me with a very close relative. Her name was Kimberly Diane Johnson, and she was also shot in the head. And so being so young and experiencing things that are just so heavy that no child really should experience, I really got heavily into selling drugs because I thought that was the way. Mm-hmm. That's what the streets taught me. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't until I was 23 and I went to this little church out in Roseville called Clear Voice Ministries. Mm-hmm. And that day, my life changed. Wow. And I do mean completely. Mm-hmm. I gave my life to the Lord, and from that day on, I was a different person. So to fast forward to where I am today, because of my life experiences, I always wanted to give back to my community, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. Mm-hmm. So I started feeding the homeless because, in ministry, that's the first thing, do something. So I started feeding the homeless. And I said, I want to do this. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to do things like this to help our community. And then it just shifted. So I started a nonprofit, and it shifted because I began to see a lot more issues in our communities. Right. And so we still serve the community, the homeless community, but it shifted to me seeing that young people, just like myself, when I was younger, are headed down the wrong direction. and especially in our Black communities, Black and brown communities. And so I decided to take a stand and start this nonprofit that I just absolutely love. It's a passion to serve the youth, their families, and the community.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
We noticed that in the title of your organization, it is Love Action Intentionally.
Absolutely.
Why use that term intentionally?
Because to love, to genuinely love, it has to be intentional.
Right.
And then we also have to really start intentionally doing things, because love is an action word. Intentionally doing things to help benefit other people's lives and not just our own. So that's why we named it that. And I'm gonna tell you what it means. It means let our voices echo action intentionally. Meaning you have to do something. You can't just say it.
Right, right.
So you gotta walk the walk.
That's right.
All too often we get in this community, we get people who talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk.
Walk the walk.
That's right.
That's right. And you walking the walk.
Yeah.
You know, wow. You're opening up, when you opening up and telling the audience a little bit about yourself,
Right.
that really touched me, and I know it's gonna touch millions out there that's watching this program.
I hope so.
You know, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You know, for changing your life, and another thing too, and going the right direction. And
Yes.
that direction is with God.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate that, you know. But one thing I wanted to ask you also, you got a lot of summer programs coming up.
Yes.
Okay. Tell the audience a little bit about the summer programs that you got coming up.
Sure. So our summer programs are for youth between the ages of 6 and 25. And they range from literacy programs for 2nd to 4th graders, a STEAM program which focuses on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and which is a week-long program for our youth. And then another thing we did this summer that we had not done in the past is that this summer we are focusing, intensively focusing on our teenagers. And so between the ages of 13 to 17 and 18 to 25. In North Highlands, there have been so many deaths, young deaths in that area. And so we want to change that narrative, and we want to help to minimize, no, let me not say minimize, to stop the deaths that are happening out there for our young people. So we're giving them an open space on Friday nights, every Friday night, to come and just be creative in the arts. And so we have a recording studio at our site, and then we also have a space for them to perform. And so what they do is they go into the recording studios, put together a few pieces, and then they perform it on the Friday nights. They do dance, they do singing, they do rapping, they do poetry, and it's just a great outlet for them. And I mean, the kids are lining up just to be a part of this on Friday nights. So if you have a teenager that just wants to be around their peers, we'd love to have them.
I know that some, especially young people, and even many adults, don't know. I'm not sure if any have come to you. They don't know what their purpose is in life. I want to kind of go back a little bit, and then you can relate to or speak on the youth that you're working with. But
Sure.
At what point did you really know? What was that defining moment where you knew what your purpose in life was?
Oh, it took a while. It took a while, but...
it took a long moment.
Oh, it did. Oh, it did. So I would say it is definitely in recent years. That's the one thing that I was always trying to figure out in life. And so I would move from one thing to the next, just trying to figure that out. But in recent years, since I started my nonprofit, even then I wasn't too sure what I was supposed to do. And I'd say maybe in the past 3 years, I knew my purpose is to really, really help people who feel hopeless, who, due to systematic reasons, have been living a life that's less than what they really can live. Because there are people who should really be living to the maximum, to their fullest potential, but don't believe that they can.
Right.
And so my purpose is to kind of be that conduit to help them to get from here to over here, where there's really greatness in them, and for them to know it.
Right, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
So, do you know what that moment was for you? That actually, where that light went off?
Well, I don't believe it was just a moment. I believe it just kind of was over time, but it was something that kept stirring inside of me. Like, this isn't it. I mean, I know that,
Right.
you know, I'm doing good, and this seems to be right, but on the inside, it just wasn't it.
Right.
And it wasn't until I remember we had a board meeting, and I kept going, but that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to express it to you. And I know in that board meeting, I was like, this is it. Right. This is what I'm trying to say. This is what I want to see happen in our community. So I don't know if that was the defining moment, but
Right.
I just know that there was a stirring for a long time. And there was this isn't it. But I know we're on the right track, but it's just not it.
So you have that contentment now with that.
I do.
So
I know for a fact. Yeah, no
you
doubt.
know, I remember a while back somebody asked me that, you know, what is your purpose? How you know your purpose?
Yeah.
And my thing is that I knew my purpose when I got with God.
Yeah.
When He came into my life, that's when I knew. That's when I knew.
That's awesome.
You know, the same, because I heard you loud and clear, because it happened to me when you said you went to that little church.
Yes.
That's when you knew.
That's when I knew.
So your youth that you work with, what would you say? They're dealing with their own, you know, problems and struggle. The youth that you're working with, what is the main problem that you see? The difficulty that some mentors and adults have with reaching them?
Relationship.
Okay.
Relationship. That's probably the biggest issue, and that's with youth and their parents, is really building those genuine, authentic relationships. One thing, when you're working with a community and you're working with families, because it is a family thing when you're dealing with youth, you got to work with the parents as well.
Right.
If you don't build real relationships with them, they won't trust you. Right. If you don't build real relationships with them, they're going to feel as if you're just another person, they're just another number,
Right.
and that this is just not real. And so they're going to try to get out of you whatever they can, because they're thinking that you're just trying to get something out of them.
Right.
So building those real relationships,
So building that trust.
yes, is what's really important.
Do you see a generational gap between the kids and the parents these days?
What do you mean?
Like, for example, you know, kids, like when I was growing up, okay, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cellular phones, you know, we had to learn our timetables by heart,
Right.
you know, and these days, you know, like kids, you know, they can play, you know, different games on and the parents, you know, most parents is not into that.
Right.
Okay, so you think that's why the trust is there, or do you see a generational gap?
Well, I would say with parents and their children, I do see a lot of parents, especially nowadays because of how our economy is, that they're not able to spend enough quality time with their children. And so what's missing in the homes is a lot of quality time with their children. You talk about like the digital divide, like parents not really understanding how to, you know, use technology the same way as our youth, right? Yeah, I do believe that there is a digital divide. However, a lot of what adults use nowadays, social media. So they're very in tune to that. And even some adults are gamers like their kids are, right? So they're in tune to those kind of things. So I don't think that it's that gap between parents and kids. I really think it's the quality time that they spend with them. Because here you got your kids and they're on their cell phones and they're on their computers and they're on their games. And then you got the parent and they're doing the same exact thing but somewhere else. And so they're not really connecting as a family anymore. They're just kind of living life together but not really together. You know? So that's one thing that I see, is that there's not enough quality time being spent between parents and their children. And so now you got the streets that are even more empowered to raising their kids. You got a school system that's broken and they're raising their kids. You got their peers that are going down the wrong road and they're raising their kids. So parents got to get more involved in their children's lives and really know their children.
Well stated.
Well stated.
Thank you.
Lord. You educational. You educating us today.
Well, we do that. We actually help parents to advocate for their children. We go into the school system. I work with a couple of the boards for the school system. And so we help parents to know how to advocate for their children, because they don't. And it goes back to knowing your kids, wanting those relationships, spending that quality time, helping them to assist them to live their life to the fullest. It starts at home.
It's true.
And it's
100% right.
You know, just to, I mean, not making excuses, but, you know, I know it's difficult for some parents, especially the single parent household.
Absolutely.
Because they have to work.
Yeah.
You know.
And they're working, some are working 2 and 3 jobs.
Right. To take care of the child.
2 and 3 jobs.
Right.
And it takes the whole day.
Right, exactly.
And with rental increases, people are really struggling just to survive.
So your program, how many youth do you have? How many would you say attend your summer? I know they probably varies.
It does vary depending on the program. So with our mentorship program, we just do 10 boys, 10 girls, just because we really want authentic relationships. So you know, when you have too many kids, you can't really get that. You don't get that at all. With our literacy program, we have 20 students, and then with our Friday nights, it's just whoever comes that night.
Oh, okay.
Nice. One thing I wanted to ask you a question. That too, homelessness.
Yes.
Why you think, beside the norm, you know, like jobs and you know, why you think that we have a homeless problem in the Sacramento area today? Right. What is the main reason why?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that like this.
In your opinion.
I'm going to answer that just there is no main reason at all. There's no main reason for homelessness. Homelessness is there are just so many different reasons that we find that there's homelessness. So you take it back to the 80s, to the Reagan era, right? And a lot of the mental institutions were closed down. And so there's been so many homeless who have not gotten the mental help that they need. And so they stay homeless, and they even have generations of homelessness.
That's right.
And so, so that's one reason, and it's a major one.
Yes.
And then there is also drug addiction. And then there, because of their drug addictions, they lose housing. They can't stay employed. And so therefore, it puts them in the situation of being homeless and staying homeless. Right. Also, it's our economy. You know, one thing we've seen, a trend we've seen over the past 2 years, is that because the housing rates have just exponentially gone up.
Yes,
I mean, some properties.
In the last year.
Oh yeah, one property, and I'm not going to mention the name, but last month increased by 100%.
Wow.
And you had residents who were low-income families, veterans, Social Security, and they were all going to have to leave. And but they changed it. They revisited. They said, we're going to revisit this because it was just such a big thing, because too many people would have been homeless.
Right.
You know, exasperating the problem we already have.
Right.
And yeah, so there's just many reasons of homelessness. And also, we have been using the staircase model, right? So it's you start off and you go into a shelter if you're homeless, right? And then from the shelter you get all these services, and you have to make this mark and then make the next mark and then the next mark, right? And then what they found is that if there's a staircase model, people will continue to fall down.
Right.
And then it's just kind of a cycle of homelessness.
Cycle that doesn't end.
That cycle, And so now there's a new approach, and it is housing first. And what they have found with great success is that if you house someone first, it will already deal with some of those other issues. They just need the housing, they need the stability. And once you house them, then if they choose those wraparound services, that's just a benefit, right? But getting people housed first is what's most important, and getting people off the streets.
Excellent information that I'm sure our viewers are really going to appreciate hearing, and hopefully some of this information will sink into some hearts and minds out there. Mr. Brown, is there anything else you want to ask?
Yes. Take a little time out and talk to the audience out there, you know, and let them know what you're doing. Give them a place to where it's though, especially for your teen program, the address and stuff like that, which we're going to have it on the Lord 3rd, but you can also tell them too.
Sure. So the message I would have for all of you out there is get involved. You know, you can't really make a difference unless you actually get involved. You know, a lot of times we'll complain about different things in our community. We'll complain about the homelessness, right? We'll say, not in my backyard, and we'll complain about it. We'll complain about, you know, high crime rates. We'll complain about, you know, the problems that some of our kids are facing in school with education. We'll complain about those things. But complaining won't get us anywhere, right, as a community. So it's really, really important for us to get involved. And how you can get involved is, one, you can volunteer. Not with just our organization, but look for what you're passionate about and get involved in maybe an organization that addresses some of those issues. But get involved and volunteer, and then become an advocate and begin to advocate for the things that are important to your life, your children's lives, your neighbors' lives, a friend's life, because there are so many issues and so many plights that we face out here as a community. And if we just begin to get involved one person at a time, we could make real change in our communities. So I would love for to see our whole parking lot full of young people on Friday nights. It's for teens only, 13 up to 25. And our address is 5848 Santa Fe Way, North Highlands, California, 95660. Our phone number is 916-796-9846. And you can visit us at www.loveactionint.org. You can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Well, this is going to wrap up another exciting and interesting and informative episode of Uplifting Communities. When you get an opportunity, please visit Uplifting Communities Facebook page, like us, and also we're on Instagram as well, right? And then be sure to consider being a friend of Access Sacramento. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we can receive funds, Access Sacramento can, that are tax deductible to you. So please, like Ms. Brown said, be involved, be active, advocate for those in your community, and then hopefully Sacramento at some point will be an even better place to stay.
Moving on up.
Yes,
Moving on up.
That's right. That's the Jeffersons.
All right.
And another thing that I wanted to add on to what you said, TD, is that I am so happy. Uplifting Communities Talk Show, we're doing so many positive things. Car washes. Plus, we helped with
marches.
The marches.
Marches
Terry O'Dear, she went out with the police department and did what was that?
a peace walk.
A peace walk.
That's right.
With the Sacramento Police Department, representing uplifting communities. Also, the other organization.
The Be Warm Drive.
The
Be Warm
Be
Project.
Warm Drive.
The Be Warm
With the
Drive.
beanies, the socks, and the gloves. Was it gloves?
No.
Yeah, it was
Scarves.
good, wasn't it?
Scarves. Beanies, socks, and scarves. That's right. And I also want to mention that we now have an award-winning program because our producer, John Jackson, won the award for Rookie of the Year television production here in the fiscal year at Access Sacramento. And so we want to honor him and thank him for all his hard work in getting Uplifting Communities, the TV show, off the ground and looking really good. So thank you so much, Mr. Jackson, along with your wife, Mrs. Jackson, who you cannot get this done without her. We know that. And we'd also like to thank the rest of the crew, Van and, tell me your name again, Franklin, okay? We want to thank you so very much for watching Uplifting Communities. Please tell your friends all about us, okay? And with that, I'm T.D. Trice.
I'm Terry A. O'Neill.
I'm John L. Brown.
And
Good night.
thank you so much for watching Uplifting Communities.
Uplifting. Whoa, whoa. Bring it together, y'all. Yeah. Uplifting. Need some uplifting, yeah. We can get it right. So we can get it right. Uplifting, uplifting community.